The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Optimized, a marketing performance podcast. I'm your host, Janet Rosseth, 25-year veteran of multifamily marketing, and here to help you optimize in your personal and professional life and find 1% better, whether it's uncovering data or perfecting processes. Whatever it may be, we're going to talk through some ideas and thoughts today on how you can bring that 1% better. I'm super excited today to have Katie Nelson here, VP of Marketing from CAPREIT, someone I've known and respected for a long time. And we're going to unpack a lot of things, marketing and how we make the decisions we make and tackle the projects we tackle. Hi, Katie.
Hey, thank you for having me, Janet.
Absolutely. Do you want to introduce yourself and give our listeners a little background on your career path?
Sure, I would love to.
I always ask, how did you know that you always wanted to be a multifamily marketer?
I love that. And like you and I have talked about before, like many of us, it's something I fell into. And multifamily, it just once you're in it, it just kind of just captures you and doesn't let you go. So even though my journey has taken me into real estate and having my own marketing company, I did come back to multifamily, and that definitely is my passion. My name is Katie Nelson. I am the Vice President of Marketing for CAPREIT. CAPREIT is out of the East Coast. We have two offices there, one in North Bethesda, Maryland, and the other in downtown Philadelphia. I am located in Minnesota. We have many different hubs. And so I am part of the Minneapolis hub, but I oversee the marketing for the entire company. We've been in business for a little over 30 years. We are a family-owned company, which is amazing. It's one of our core values. And currently we have a little over 10,000 units. We've been very close to 20,000 within my tenure with CAPREIT. So we've been all over the board when it comes to amount of units and communities that we have. So
that's a nice size portfolio. And I know we've talked about this before, but I'm always so impressed with the size of your team. Can you explain your team to listeners for 10,000 units? And you have 50 plus properties, right?
Yes, we have a
stretched
little
across the nation.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we have all different markets. Our largest markets are the central region. We've got Minneapolis and St. Louis are really big hubs. We are in the Southeast as well and kind of growing there. And then we have a really large hub in the Mid-Atlantic region. So we are spread, and my team is 100% remote. And I have just myself and one other person on the marketing side. And then I also oversee our Centralized Leasing program. And I have two team members there as well. So
4 total team members split down the middle, marketing and leasing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I just want to touch on, you're getting a lot done with very few people on board. So you must have just insane synergy across your team.
Yes. Like I said, we're 100% remote. So that is something that I really focus on, is making sure that we're working together well, that we're all engaged with each other, that if one person needs something, they can reach out to another person. And that's really important. And then making sure that we have fun together as well. So we do that too. Yeah.
I think it's really cool too that you oversee marketing and leasing within this team of 4, because sometimes when you don't have that synergy, it really is hard to be successful in your marketing efforts and initiatives if you don't also have that collaboration between leasing. Right. And you have this small team of 4 split between leasing and marketing. And I mean, the feedback loop must just be constant on what's working, what's going to fly across the rest of the portfolio, what's going to be successful, how easy it is to navigate.
Yeah. The great thing about having our centralized leasing program be a part of the marketing department is that our centralized leasing specialists can do more than just answer phones and do follow-up. So they help create flyers. They do, mass text and email. They help manage our AI virtual leasing assistant. They do video tours. So
Incredible.
they're just very, they have a wide variety of what they can do. And that is something that myself and my other marketing person really work with them on. And so it just makes them so multifaceted. It's not just
Yeah.
answering calls and setting
I'm
appointments.
curious about that too. Are they assigned to a portfolio of sites that they
Yes, they
oversee?
are. Yep. So we
Okay.
piloted this program about 2.5 years ago, and we just kind of found like what is the perfect recipe as far as them really knowing and understanding the communities, being in sync with them, making sure that they are a full extension of a CAPREIT employee for their team. So we cap them at 5 communities. They
Okay.
pretty much are able to have the entire community memorized. They can tell people which way the apartment community is facing. If a prospect is looking for something very specific, they can get right into it, and there's no pause. So
Okay.
it's just a great flowing conversation. And many of the prospects that do go in for an in-person tour end up asking for the centralized leasing associate. So that capping them at 5 and making sure that they memorize those communities is it's just pivotal in
And do they
land.
always have the same 5, or are they assigned to 5 that need a little extra impact?
Right. They don't. They can fluctuate communities. We have kind of a minimum because it does take them a long time to
Yeah.
memorize the community and understand all the fees and uh, amenities and things like that. But they are there to help our communities that are short staffed. We're going to be running a community remotely, so they'll be, in charge of all of the leasing at that point. So they help as many as they can, but we do cap them at 5 at a time.
This just sounds incredibly optimized. Sorry, but I had to go there. Like it sounds really efficient.
Yeah, it is, and it's amazing. It's taken a little bit of time to help our regionals and on-site teams understand that the centralized specialist is not there to take their place. They're not there to take their commissions. They're an extension, something that can help them and benefit them on site, so they can focus on resident renewals, making sure our residents and the asset is taken care of in the best manner, where that
Right.
phone isn't ringing all the time, but they still have appointments coming in and people leasing online. So,
Right. Everything gets done, and in the
yep,
process, the
yep,
prospect experience stays consistent.
yes.
Beautiful. Well done, Katie. Well done. You
Thank
have a
you.
lot of projects cooking right now, if I'm correct. I'm curious, we talked a little bit about rebranding and the initiatives that you're tackling. What's coming for you in 2025 for rebranding?
So we've done quite a bit of rebranding, and I know multifamily marketers understand you've got your corporate brand, and then you have your community brands. So, and that, for us, it's quite a few different brands. We've rebranded our corporate branding guide. We did that a couple years ago. And then we do rebrand websites. So I typically like to do that every 2 years. We're a little behind right now, but we are going to be rebranding our community brand and then also going into redoing all of their websites. So it is a task. We do it in phases. This is the 3rd time I have redone all of our websites, but I think we have to do that in order to keep up with the user experience for our
I
prospects, for
agree.
our residents. This is your online address. It's many times one of the first times people really experience what the lifestyle of your community is like. So I just think it's so important that we stay up to date with that. So I'm always willing to take on those branding projects.
Right. I always say it really is your digital storefront. So
Yeah.
it's, you can have digital advertising many other places, but that storefront and your website is where you really can create the vibe.
Yes.
and own it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's
So you
not,
probably get through phases, and by the time you get through the last phase, you're starting the next rebrand. Does it
yes.
feel a little like that?
Times it can, absolutely. And then, as new communities come on, we're, going through renaming, going through the rebranding,
Yeah.
building their websites. So it's a constant in the marketing biz. And so, understanding branding and telling that story is so important because
Right.
it's just never ending in what you do.
Do you tend to lean towards templated website products that align with your PM system, or do you go custom and integrate?
So it is not a one size fits all for communities. So I would not recommend just doing one template for every community you have. CAPREIT is, like I said, we're multifaceted. So we have conventional communities, we have mixed communities, we have affordable, we have senior living, and we have HUD communities as well. So we really look into the market, we look into the demographic, what that target audience really feels is a good experience for them and will convert. So we have a few that are templated. That would be our HUD properties, since we can't technically market them, but we do need kind of a storefront for our online payments and so forth. And then our senior living is going to be a little bit different because that's a completely different audience. And then our affordable and conventional, it's going to depend on, what kind of submarket they're in. Are they urban? Are they suburban? Are they a little bit more rural? So we customize it for the market and the
There's
demographic.
so many variables. I was
Yes, it
trying to
is.
explain to someone the other day the process of building websites for multifamily communities, and it's not just your typical product where you can just put up a Wix website or Square website or whatever it may be. It's like there are just so many components, and some of them are governed, and some of them need licensing, and some of them need, there's just so many. I'm curious, websites have changed so much and are constantly changing. And I know if you and I were to talk again in 18 months, there'd be something completely new again. But what are the components that you are most focused on coming into this next rebrand? I'm just curious how you're thinking about all the pieces with AI in the mix and voice search and all the ability to capture SEO across so many different variables. What's high on your radar right now going into this?
Well, first of all, it's going to be the user experience. Again, catered to that particular market. But what we want in our websites and, of course, to trickle down to our ILSs and paid advertising is a one-stop shop for our prospects where we're open 24/7, 365. So we want to meet them where they're at, whether they want to rent an apartment at 1 o'clock in the morning, whether they have questions, they want to ask somebody, and it's 7 o'clock at night. We want to make sure that we are meeting them exactly where they're at so that we can quickly convert them and make that experience seamless for them. I hate that word so much, but I could think of another one because we use it quite a bit in
Frictionless,
our
right?
company. I know the seamless word, right?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. But really, that's what it is, and it's more like simplicity. Like we don't want it to be complex. We don't want them to have to click too many times to find what they
Yeah.
want. We understand our audience has a really, really limited attention span, and so to make that as simplistic as possible, and then also answer their questions, have them talk to a live agent, which is our AI assistant. So we have that tool as well, and then making sure that we're learning and asking, answering the questions in the way that they want it to be answered is so important. So yes, our AI tools are extremely important. Our self-guided, self-scheduling, anything that they need, we want to make sure is on our website. So including the brand story, it's just making sure it's a fully functional e-commerce type website where they can get anything they need at any time.
I love that your centralized leasing teams have a hand in the AI and the messaging and feeding them information to really make it so frictionless.
Mm-hmm.
I know you spoke, was it at NAA, on the AI and human experience
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and kind of that human handoff. So over here at Cadence, we do a lot of prospect experience shopping for clients to just try to identify where there's breakdown in the systems. We call it the friction factor. But how do you make sure that your teams, that your AI to your human handoff is super frictionless?
I think it's really important for us to understand that AI isn't a takeover tool right now. It may be at some point, but right now it's not. So whether you're currently using an AI tool or a couple AI tools, or you're just now thinking about it, I think it's really important to understand that this, again, is an extension of your team and your brand and your community. So our virtual leasing assistant is there to help our prospects. They're also there to help convert. They do calls, emails, texts, and chat. So again, meeting our prospects wherever they want to be met. And I think I've told you this too before, Janet, is that I am amazed in the analytics when I look at our virtual assistant, who is named Riley. When I look at Riley and the way our prospects prefer to communicate, the highest volume is in calls, and they
That's
want to
incredible.
talk to somebody. So to me, that just blows my mind. Like I would think it would be chat or text or something like
Right.
but that experience is something that they find value in. And so
Yep.
the handoff from our virtual assistant to an actual on-site or centralized leasing person that can be just a little bit more customized and personalized is so important. So when I'm looking at all of the analytics, they go hand in hand right now. And I love that because, again, we're meeting our prospects exactly where they want to be met. And that personal touch shows them how we're going to interact with them when they become a resident.
Right.
So,
I'm
yeah.
curious, are you finding in that data, in that volume of phone calls, are you finding those callers so much more pre-qualified because they're able to get just so far in the search on their own before wanting that
Mhm.
human element to take it to the next step?
Yes, absolutely. We have a community. It's a build to rent community. It's brand new for CAPREIT. We're just finishing our lease up, and it's been so fun to do that. But what we're finding is the questions that they're asking are very pointed. Like they've done their research, which we know they do. Like we've got
Yep.
multi-touch attribution everywhere. They've done their research. Now they want to talk to somebody, and their questions are very specific. So I typically see the top 3 to 5 questions are pretty much the same every time I'm looking into our analytics. And one of them is the qualifying standards.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I think that's so exciting because we really, for a little while there, it felt like we were minimizing the value of the telephone call, right?
Mhm.
But
Yes.
from a leasing standpoint, I go back year over year and say, like, there is no better tool to close and convert and
Mhm.
get to the next step in a 4-minute conversation than the telephone. We can go back and forth and volley on email 22 times with the prospect and still not come to a conclusion on whether they're coming for a tour or they're ready to apply or they've rented somewhere else. But
Right.
the phone call, you don't hang up in the middle of the conversation.
Mhm.
You don't disconnect in the middle of the conversation. You carry it all the way through and get to a point of next step. So I just think it has so much more value than we sometimes give it. So I'm so glad to hear that. And you've mentioned a couple of things that like I can't not take us into a conversation about marketing being math, right?
Mhm.
I'm a
Yes.
big believer that marketing is math, and you've mentioned a couple of things on just the data that you use and the calls that you listen to and the dashboards that you're using to show you the most popular ways that people are interested in interacting with you. And you also mentioned multi-touch attribution. So please take me through your version of marketing being math and what data is important to you right now.
Right. So we'll start with the analytic part of marketing. So one of the questions I was asked in a podcast I did recently was, what advice would you give to somebody who's looking at getting into marketing right now? And what I have found being in marketing, I've been in marketing for a long time. I had my own marketing company as well before I came back into multifamily. But what I have found is that you would think that marketing is, oh, I'm super creative and I get to do all this fun stuff and I can
Yes.
design and, do videos. And, it's just going to be, people are going to come to me to brainstorm. And I just have all these ideas and branding, and it is, but that's only half of it. So if anybody is looking at being a marketer today, the other half is going to be that analytical, making decisions, making sure you have the right information to
Yep.
make better decisions. And so
Data shapes the
understanding,
story, right?
yes,
You don't know what to create or where to
right,
put it without the data that shapes the
right.
story.
Yes, and there's so much data out there. So it's really understanding what data it is that you need for something. Like the data that I need for talking through occupancy and, to a stabilized community is a different type of data than what I need for planning a lease up marketing strategy. So, and then again, every market is completely different. So you really, as a marketer, have to understand analytics, understand what you're looking at, and is this relevant? Because sometimes it's not, and sometimes the data isn't correct. So,
Right.
going into multi-touch attribution, we are, as an industry, getting better at it. We've got the UTM codes, that we can add to our ILSs. We have, Google Analytics that helps us with our paid advertising and organic. So that is all really helpful. Is it 100% of the prospect journey? No, I really wish it was. I wish I didn't just get first or last touch attribution. Like, you really want to see every single point that they go through. And I think our industry will get there. It's just going to take a little bit of time. So right now, the decisions we make, and I make as a marketer, I have to look at multiple different dashboards to put the picture together. And that
Right.
can be time consuming. But on top of that, Janet, too, we've talked about this, is it's not just the data when you're making recommendations or decisions for communities. It's also talking to the on-site team, the regionals,
Yes.
people that really understand that market, and
Yep.
coming together to make the best plan for them.
So true. Data can tell you just so much, but it can't tell
Mhm.
you the gray area and what's really
Right?
happening. I think I gave you an example the other day that,
Mhm.
I get excited about what the traffic conversion reports tell me, and that, maybe one source is sending so many phone calls, but they're not converting. And, I reach out to the site and I'm like, tell me more about this source. Like, how can we convert more? And they're like, oh, the 1-800 number's been wrong. We're getting calls for a florist. Like,
It's like,
okay, thanks. I got
not
excited
a
for a minute there.
prospect.
Let's talk about the data in this industry, and for marketers in particular. We're often a small department. We're often, asked to do a lot with few resources. And sometimes that does mean that we're spending a lot of time pulling data and building it and piecing it together and trying to blend it into reports that make sense. How do you do that? What data points do you use, or what dashboards you use to make it less time consuming and yet still very meaningful?
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Now, by partnering with Chadwell Supply, they'll help communities stand out in an increasingly competitive market. So learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
So we have a business intelligence program with our PMS that is extremely helpful, but the data isn't always correct. So many times I have to veer from that dashboard and go into another.
Okay.
Uh, and that can be very difficult to make quick decisions and recommendations, which
Yes.
happens a lot on like our
Do you find
website
yourself
calls.
down rabbit holes?
Yes. So like, give me a minute, going to another dashboard here so I can give you the best recommendation that I
Yep.
have at my fingertips. And that's difficult as a marketer. I think simplifying and making things more unified is something that we need to look into. Our vendors should be looking into is more simplified platform to help with all of those touch points. Because I can't even tell you how many dashboards I have to go to get a
Yeah.
full picture.
Right. It's insane. And I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit of an analytic mind. So
Yeah.
I might be down a path of one hypothesis that I'm trying to prove.
Mhm.
And I get into a dashboard and see something else that throws a question
Yes,
mark.
you're
And
like,
I'm like,
oh,
oh, shiny object. Wait, where was I going?
this is sparkling at me. Like, wait a
Yes,
minute. I thought this, not
exactly.
this. Yeah. Yep. I'm
Yeah.
the
I appreciate that every product has, reporting and promises the glamour of a marketer that can make data-driven decisions in moments, but I agree with you. We're not quite there yet.
No.
It's still a little antiquated and we still have to piece and part things together off of multiple dashboards. I hope that we get there someday.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
I'm just happy that we've even got here
Yeah.
because even prior to COVID, I know our industry was really trying to push the analytical part and having a dashboard and
Yeah.
automating reports. And COVID gave us that push. So
Yeah.
if anything was a benefit of COVID, it was our industry finally like moving into the technology piece and data that we needed to. And we just need to keep going that way. And I'd love to see our vendor partners grow and add things and add AI
Yeah.
tools and give us the information that we want and work together to help the operators make better, faster decisions for their
I
community.
completely
So
agree. I
I'd
know
love
there's
to
a
see that.
very big push in the industry for owned data, for us to be able to
Yes.
pull data out of the tools that we use and own it and be able to digest it and, work within it in our own platforms. But
Yes.
right now it's isolated a little bit in the platform it arrived in. And I think one of the challenges too is that we got to a point, you're so right about 2020 and 2021, we got to a point where people were integrating and everything was getting, much more prop tech on top of each other. We were so much more nimble and fearless. But I think what we're also identifying now is that integrations aren't all equal. So you
Correct.
think that information is being sent from one technology platform to another, but the receiving end, it doesn't always receive it into the same fields. So I
Right.
think that's where you and I end up losing a lot of time digging further information out is a conversion metric isn't equal across all platforms,
Right.
right?
And sometimes it isn't even in the same platform.
Yes.
So it depends on, what reports or widgets you have. And then
Yep.
you think you're looking at the same data, but you're not getting the same response or the
Right.
answer. So you're like, wait a minute, what are the parameters of this? Like, and
Yes.
which one is right? So,
Oh
and what
my
if they're
gosh.
both
I'll tell you
wrong?
one of my favorites and also most frustrating right now is everybody wants to know the real story on the thirst for virtual tours, right? I mean, we have all these self-scheduling tools for prospects to use to schedule a tour. And a lot of them, especially with our advertising partners, offer the prospect the opportunity to choose, do you want an in-person tour or a virtual tour? Now, on the property management side, it's not always recorded. Did they ask for a virtual or an in-person? And so everybody's making decisions on whether or not to continue to pursue these tools based on the end conversion report that says, nope, everybody just wants to come in person. But we test this a lot within our organization. Like I said, we, test for clients on, when they're putting new tech in place or they're trying to work out the friction in the process. And we always ask for a virtual tour. And I can't tell you how many times either our message doesn't land in the CRM, indicating to the leasing agent that we asked for a virtual tour, or we schedule it through the ILS and it's never making it to the leasing agent saying that we asked for a virtual tour. So where is that? I've been to so many conferences where people are like, oh, we just don't see as much interest in the virtual tours. And it's like, I feel different. I feel really differently about this. I just feel like we aren't capturing the data.
I think you're 100% correct because I am such an advocate for virtual tours. And many
I
of
think
our
it's a
communities,
pre-leasing tool. I think at the
yes,
end of the day, people do want to, like you said, talk to a human being
mhm,
and ask their questions. But I also think that prospects are using it as a process of elimination. If I could
mhm,
take a virtual tour and say, yeah, that does look like something that I want to see in person, it's going to save me a lot of time in my schedule going in person.
correct. Yeah. And it will dwindle it down to the top three for that
Yep.
prospect. So again, meeting them where they want to be met. I will say it is tough to get that data through the
Yeah.
ILSs, almost impossible. Um, we have a video leasing tour company we work with, and I can get data from them. They do integrate with our CRM and PMS. But to get analytics, I have to go into their dashboard again, get another
Yep.
dashboard. But there I can see, did they click on, if did they click on the link? So a lot of times the link lives in our CRM
Yep.
or on our website. Did they click on it? How many times did they watch it? How long, did they watch through the video? Did they share the link with somebody? So I am able to capture some of that data, but I
Yeah.
just have to go somewhere else to get it. And I
Yep.
have found that our communities that have the video tours that are open to it and have done it do extremely well. And again, we're our build to rent community, the virtual tours and our self-guided tours are they are tracked. They are very high up on what our prospects want to do or see. And sometimes it is combined with in person, but a lot
Yep.
of times in this particular case, because we have a lot of people moving into town from out of state, they will just lease it sight unseen.
Yeah, I think I've heard stat a couple of times this year that 35 to 40% of prospects in urban markets are looking from outside the market.
Mm-hmm.
So it really kind of lends to think if you are a leasing agent, you should really be making this process very seamless because you
Mm-hmm.
have an opportunity to close a prospect pool that it's it's challenging. It's challenging to be a prospect from out of state.
Right. Yeah.
It
And
really
our
is. And I think it's challenging for leasing agents too, because if you and I are struggling to get the data out of multiple ports
mhm.
and multiple dashboards, think about our leasing agents who are
Yeah.
trying to get the information from a chatbot or AI that lands partially in the CRM. And then the form that they filled out on the ILS or the request that they sent over and the extra information they put in an email, it's like, we ask them to follow up so fast throughout their day, but we've also got to train them to look deep at the
Right.
information that might have been provided by the prospect rather than just, I call it follow up flinging,
Right.
to just
Yes.
check the
Yeah.
box
The
and get
check
it off your
limit.
list.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, but it can be time consuming.
Yes. Yes, it can. It can.
Yeah. Again, you have that feedback loop between leasing and marketing. I think you're in a really good position to be able to
Hmm.
hear the friction firsthand from your teammates.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Certainly am.
Uh, I love that we were able to touch on analytics. What about just multi-channel campaigns, all the new varieties of digital marketing? I mean, it used to be that we could just, allocate our budget across SEO and SEM and a little bit of pay-per-click, but there is so much more now in terms of social media and TikTok and voice search and all these potential search areas. How do you keep up with where you want to allocate and how you have enough content for it?
So again, it comes into market analytics. So understanding your market, your audience, the sub-market, what you have coming on board, because that's been the number of units that have come on board over the last couple of years have hurt even some of our stabilized properties. But when we're doing lease ups, it's the same thing. So understanding your market and then really making sure that it's not just one size fits all when it comes to the multi-channel campaign. And sometimes it's a learning experience, even for us who have been in the business for a long time. So we've started using influencers, and that's been really interesting and helpful, especially with our build to rent community. We used a realtor influencer, which
Nice. Where do you
actually
find your
helped.
influencer?
It was just YouTube searching. Just went on YouTube, looked at channels, and looked at this particular area, and we found this great realtor, and we just went and met with him, and we're like, "Hey, do you want to do this? You want to be an
I think
influencer
it's
for us?"
such
And
a
he's like,
brilliant
"Sure."
strategy. I
Yeah,
love the strategy. I just feel like I've talked to so many people who are really excited about the strategy, and then you get somebody in place, and then they sort of all of a sudden start not performing.
right.
Or
Yeah.
how
I
do
mean,
you rein them in?
there's all different ways to find influencers. We have just started this, but the great thing with influencers is they can then refer you to other influencers. So this particular
Nice.
one, referred us to another influencer in a different city for one of our urban communities. And I'm hoping it just rolls off of that. But they do have, platforms that you can search for influencers with a certain amount of followers and, certain subjects or whatever they think that they're experts on. So, but I love that we tried it and we're open to it. I think combining the social, the paid, the ILSs is important. Understanding, not just one is going to work. And
Right.
sometimes, when we try something, it doesn't work and we pull back from it. And so the flexibility is something that you need when you're really considering putting together, your multi-channel strategy. And then
Right.
also,
The flexibility and a couple of key goals. If you're going to
Mhm,
try something new, I think it's really important in the first 90 days to set some expectations of what you expect to get out of it so that at that
exactly.
time you can measure it and say, we're close, let's give it a little longer, or it's really not meeting these benchmarks and we should reallocate these dollars.
Yeah, and it's most important in lease ups because you've got multiple eyes on that lease up
Yes.
to make sure that you're going to hit stability in time.
Yes. And
Um,
as I always say, C of O dates do not move for you. No, they are
they can benefit
tick
you,
tock,
like
tick
you get a
tock.
little early, but
They
you know,
don't wait for your marketing to catch up.
no, they don't. And I have done quite a few lease ups in my time. I've been a community manager doing lease ups. I, have done it on this end as well. And just really understanding your market is probably a number one most important.
Yes.
So I do utilize my vendor partners to gather information. And then we have other AI tools that we use to gather information as far as advertising and it just GPS tracking. It's crazy. It's kind of scary, but it's
I
very
know,
nice
isn't
when you
it?
have to put together a plan and a target audience. But we do use AI tools for that, and I love it because it really helps me hone in on who we need to target for that particular community. So.
Any favorite AI tools you'd recommend?
So there is one that our acquisition team uses, and then I use it for my lease up strategies, or if we're getting a community that maybe needs extra help in occupancy. It's called Placer AI.
Oh, yes. I've heard of
Yes.
it.
Oh my goodness, the information you can get from there is so crazy. So yeah,
Amazing.
that's probably my favorite tool when it comes to lease ups is that particular AI tool.
Thanks for sharing that. I love that.
Sure.
Uh, Let me ask you, like, what's on your radar coming into 2025? I know you talked about the rebranding, but what are
Mhm.
you paying close attention to? What are you watching in trends?
So I'm going to shift over to the corporate side of marketing here because that is really, what this year has been, and 2025 will be even more intense because of COVID, because of the cap rates and real estate and where the housing market is right now. Our company has sold quite a bit, but we are still buying. One thing that we are doing a bigger focus on is third party management. And so, branding and creating the tools we need in order to vie for that business is something that we're really, really focused on. So, I have focus groups for that. And then we're just redoing all of our collateral. We're going to probably redo our website again next year. So it's just a huge focus on ensuring that we can get out there, that we can meet with new partners, that we are really intentionally looking for new partnerships is really important for the corporate side of it. So, and then of course, we've got our case studies with how well our communities are doing and the amazing tools we're using and leasing anywhere at any time. So that part's really fun. And what I love about marketing is we are also a big part in business development. And so I love to go on pitches and talk about the marketing strategy and, how amazing we are and what we can do for that particular owner. So that's a huge focus for us within the next couple of years, but next year is going to be super heavy on that.
It sounds exciting. I've heard so many layers in what you've said just in our conversation that for a 2-person marketing team, yes, you've got the additional leasing people too in that feedback loop, but the focus groups, the additional conversations with the teams and with potential owners and with your vendors, you and I have talked about that too in those relationships. And you clearly have really organized your department well to be able to leverage outside resources, not to take those resources in and then figure out how to do everything yourself, but to reach out to those resources with a game plan so that you can take their input back in as part of your team.
Yes, absolutely. We cannot do it all, and I'm not going to pretend that we can, because what I want is to be able to do the best job for our company. And in order to do that, we do have to use outside agencies to help us. My relationships with them are extremely important. I need to make sure, number one, that they're flexible. Number two, that they always listen to us, because what we need for one project may be completely different than what we need for a different one. Again, different owners, could be third party, could be senior living. So making sure that that relationship is pretty strong and that they always listen to us is really important. We have had some hiccups in some of our vendor relationships. I have one in particular. I won't say the name because we are still working with them now, but we had a hiccup and we canceled working with them. And I love how this owner salesperson came back to me and said, what can we do to make this better for you? Please tell me your pain points, which I already had, but I reiterated them. And they came back and said, we have this plan for you. And so we signed back on with them. And it's been an amazing partnership. And I can't tell you how important that was for me, that they cared enough.
Yeah.
And they cared enough to come and say, hey, look, what can we do? We did something wrong. We're so sorry. How can we make this better and get you back? And so again, the leading with the relationship with our vendors and the agencies that we use is huge, because if honestly, if they tick off one of our leaders, like, we're not going to use them anymore.
No, no.
I have great relationships with many of my vendors. Some of them I consider friends. So, yeah.
I mean, we all stay around this industry forever and ever and ever. So those vendor relationships are so important. And I agree with you that part of the importance of them is really having that collaboration between each other and understanding what's important.
Right.
Not every client is going to place the same prioritization or importance on having deep conversations or getting together once a quarter or once a month and evaluating the processes. Some people like to set it and forget it.
Yeah.
But, if a vendor assigns an agent to you or a rep to you that is comfortable with the set it and forget it route, and you're the kind of 2-person department that wants a little more involvement, I think it is really important to have that conversation and make sure that you're getting the most out of the relationship.
Yes. Yep. So we have to use agencies and different vendors so that we can do the best job we can for the company. Yeah. And it's been amazing to find the right fit for us.
Yeah, so good. I don't want to keep you all day, but I do always have a final question that I ask every guest, and that is, how do you personally optimize in your day-to-day, whether it's for your personal life or professional life? You're coming here and running this very small department and doing very big things. What's something that you do to optimize?
Well, I mean, I can just say probably what everyone says is like professional development, making sure that I'm staying on trend. that I understand the industry, that I'm networking and making those connections to help better our company. I also think I've learned a lot over the last couple of years as a leader for a team. Even though we're a small team, it's not necessarily easy because we're all remote. So, understanding where everyone is coming from, understanding mental health for working from home, because that's a thing, like
Yeah.
I just started working from home and I can tell you it's not easy. That adjustment it's tough. And making sure that we talk through those things, but also understanding that everybody is their own person and they aren't always optimized the same way. Understanding that maybe this person does better in the morning and the afternoons are harder for them. That's okay. Let's talk it through. Like, how can we make this easier for you? What will help you to get through your afternoons? Do we need to shift and change some hours? You need to take a shorter lunch or start earlier. Like, I have learned to be flexible with my team members, and honestly, it's just created a much more open environment for them to come to me when they have struggles, or if they need to talk to me about a community they're having issues with, or a problem with a project. Like, I just want to be able to be the best leader as possible. And so that is definitely something I'm continually learning and try, I don't know,
Great
1%
advice.
better, I'll try.
Right? Oh, I'm glad that you brought that up because you go through your whole career thinking, I know how to lead a team that I work in the same office with.
Mm-hmm.
And then you all go remote and it's like, okay, now there's all these other buttons and levers I need to push and pull to make sure we get the best performance out of everybody with the distractions of being at home. And sometimes there literally are no distractions, and that's a distraction,
Yeah.
right?
Like, you're used to hearing everyone else on meetings and
Yes.
chatting in the hallway. It's like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
what?
It almost makes you more productive when there's busy people around you.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
there's nothing happening around you, it's like, oh, I could water my plants. Or
Yeah. It's a different energy level for sure. You have to bring your own energy every day.
yes, exactly. I love that. That was great advice. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where's the best place for our listeners to connect with you if they want to just follow your thought process or learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is probably the best. Love LinkedIn for just connections in the industry, or, vendor side or whatever. So LinkedIn is the best place to find me. So please find me. I'd love
Awesome.
to have you.
Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I think this episode's going to be fantastic for a lot of people. And listeners, if you liked what you heard today, please like, share, comment on the podcast on Spotify. And huge thank you to the Multifamily Media Network who hosts this podcast and so many other really talented voices and authors within that network. So go out and listen to a few new ones as well. I'll leave you with just our goal of optimizing. Go out and find your 1% better. Until next time, bye.
Thank you again to Chadwell Supply for sponsoring this episode. Chadwell Supply delivers unforgettable service with next day delivery, online and in-person maintenance training, procurement platform, assistance to make your ordering simple. Visit chadwellsupply.com/difference to learn how Chadwell Supply will make your day better.